a new beginning, and as Arendt was diagnosing the American Revolution, constitutio libertatis. Herein, in my view, lies hope for democracies in crisis. Arendt prioritizes promise as action, which depends on plurality, on the presence of acting of others. These performances are actions of promise. Arendtian action brings a new existential beginning and entails political agency. As Margaret Canavan comments, for Arendt, human beings are creatures who act in the sense of starting things and setting off trains of events. Julia Kristeva goes further to arrive at an interpretation of Arendt's concept of human life as a political action. Sheila Ben-Habib emphasizes the radical discovery of the link between action, narration, and interpretation. Arendt's is a narrative, interpretative, existential concept of action. Life itself is action, or to paraphrase Socrates, life worth living is activist life. Action constitutes a communicative, transforming interaction which produces social change. Action stands for this acted narrative, often called living word in the apt phrase of Julia Kristeva, or agonistic performance in the reading of Dana Villa. Hannah Arendt dubs action the one miracle-working faculty of man, of human being. As Jesus of Nazareth, these are the words of Hannah Arendt, whose insights into this faculty can be compared in their originality with Socrates' insight into the possibilities of thought. Action evokes hope. For Arendt, action combines with her notion of natality and plurality. As to the latter, Arendt herself writes that action, the only activity that goes on directly between men, between human beings, without the intermediary of things or matter, corresponds to the human condition of plurality. Natality implies that everybody is a unique newcomer to this world. This is action, but also utopia. Etymologically, utopia, as you all know, means no place. In this context, these no places appear as out of places, atopos, as again Socrates defined himself. Munoz, a queer scholar who died just a week ago, he revived the philosophy of hope in the work of Ernst Bloch. Like Munoz's Cruising Utopia, the work of Ernst Bloch is an inspiration for my thinking about action, hope, utopia, and hospitality. I would like to develop Bloch's ideas from the spirit of utopia. His work propounds powerful theories about making history in futurity. In queer studies, there has been too much emphasis on the past and not enough on the future. This is also what Bloch claimed in postulating a futurity of utopianism. Utopia can serve as a new form of solidarity, as well as opposition, contestation, dissidence. And I think that's what we need here and now, a new dissidence. In the past, dissidence came from Eastern Europe. Is there hope for Eastern Europe to produce a new utopia? In the current temporality of Europe, the crucial question is an ethical one. How to be hospitable, live together, caring for each other, respecting identity and difference alike. How to enhance our common humanity, shared with refugees dying at the borders of the EU, and with women, people of subaltern ethnicities, migrants turned slaves of austerity, Jews, Roma, homeless, unemployed, transgender, and queers, including asylum seekers deported from this continent. Excessive, if not pathological, cultivation of strict belonging to a norm, dominant nation, heteronormativity, privileged race or class, to the detriment of those who do not belong, should discontinue. Moreover, we should all share and participate in democracy. We badly need a dream of equal rights, visibility, participation, good life, and a futurity of self and community development. That's why we need the art that I've shared here with you. We badly need such art, calling for a utopia, effective and affective, as these works are presented in my contribution. But what are the sources of my hope for a hospitable utopia? Well,
down.
This is Ksenia, and Ksenia pertains directly to philoxenia, that is hospitality. Etymologically, xenos embraces guest and host and enemy. There's always violence underlying hospitality. A derivative of this word, xenia, designated still lifes representing dishes that were destined for guests. They were images of fruit and vegetables from which guests prepared their own meal according to their own traditions, habits, likes, distastes. In this way, the stranger was accepted and fed. Because of this law of subjective meal preparation, an enclave of otherness, of strangeness, was created at the home of the hosts. Generosity and largesse were displayed through this form of hospitality, which itself builds a space for alterity. And postulates, demands of hospitality are dispersed there in the epics of different cultures in the text considered as sacred. Here I just signaled some of them: the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, Homer, the verse from the Bible analyzed by Fromm and Kristeva of not vexing this stranger, of precisely feeding him, of leaving a sheaf in the field which you have forgotten. Then the story of Ruth, a Moabite, a stranger in Israel who was accepted by Israel, and she accepted Israel, and her mother-in-law, Naomi. This is, by the way, a beautiful, passionate utterance of Ruth to Naomi: entreat me not to leave thee or to return from following after thee, for whither thou goest I will go. This is passionate, and this fascinated Julia Kristeva, Griselda Pollock, and some LGBT activists who in Reform Judaism follow these words in the ceremony of covenant of same-sex couples. Of course, hospitality is to be followed by peace. Universal peace in Isaiah, developed in a non-religious perspective by Immanuel Kant, and that's why I had to have Kant here, zum ewigen Frieden, continued, interpreted, analyzed ad nauseam by Sheila Ben Habib, Jacques Derrida, Zygmunt Bauman, and many others. Let's not forget that the Quran also contains this beautiful vindication of hospitality. Show kindness to parents and kindred. So show kindness not only to your kith and kin, but also to the traveler indeed. And last but not least, Christ, or in a minute I will show that it's Christa. I was a stranger, I was a xenos, and yet you took me in. I'm fascinated by these images of a female Christ. One of the female Christ is offered by Helen Chadwick, Brighton Polytechnic alumna, who was responsible for another fantastic piece that I'm going to spend just a few minutes on. Bear with me. How tell my story told to you by this art of Helen Chadwick? The hands cherish the brain. This is Helen Chadwick's self-portrait, which tells me a story of vulnerable hands and hospitality. As recalled by Marina Warner, a doctor who went to bed girls in the ICA in London, noticed the deterioration of the tissues on her nails and wrote to Helen in his anxiety, warning her it would be a sign of a heart condition. This woman's thoughtfulness touched her very much, but she had checked, there was no connection to her heart. And she was suffering from a condition that usually afflicts men who work in chemical plants. It wasn't a cause of her untimely death, but which remains unknown, but is thought to be overwork. Helen Chadwick's self-portrait tells me a story of a fragile human. Beyond the post-human, transhuman and inhuman, Helen Chadwick revisits and reveres and hosts the weak human and the divine, and the body and the soul in one. Between the hands and the brain, a call for loving tenderness. The human cares and loves. Here is the caress of the brain by the hands of the artist. Here and everywhere, art is life. Now and always, the image of loving tenderness inspires life. Helen Chadwick's self-portrait tells me a story of the touch of the artist, which is not possessive, sadomasochistic, contra Jean-Paul Sartre, inspired by Hegel and Kojève, and his thesis that by touching this body, I should finally touch the other's free subjectivity. This is the true meaning of the word possession, as Sartre writes. No, far from it, as Maurice Merleau-Ponty does not agree with Sartre and sees an objectification only in an inhuman gaze, inhuman touch. The picture of Helen Chadwick practices humanity in an inner experience of tenderness. Well, apart from Helen Chadwick, Alina Shapochnikov, that Griselda spent a lot of time on, a Jewish, Czech, Polish, Warsavian, Parisian artist Alina Shapochnikov. With her mother, Shapochnikov was transported to ghettos and concentration camps. The artist's survival of the Shoah sculpted the archives of her subjectivities, her body-soul, as monument to survival, in her own titles: Fetish, Herbarium, Biological Sculpture. And let me share with you just a very short sound installation.
Lip by lip, rubble by rubble, tumor by tumor, I break and make my archives. In my archives, my mother and I